The Russian media distributes recordings from the bombed penal colony in Olenivka, where the Russians held prisoners from the Azovstal plant in Mariupol. The Russians accuse the Ukrainian side of the attack. According to the Kremlin, it was to be carried out using the American HIMARS missiles. However, the false accusations of Russian propaganda were refuted by the Ukrainian side. As reported by the Chancellery of President Volodymyr Zelensky, each use of HIMARS missiles is accurately recorded, and the attack on the penal colony in Olenivka is provocative. A few days ago, the Russians moved some of the prisoners to a barrack, which was destroyed in the explosion. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian army has been successfully continuing its attacks on Russian ammunition and weapons depots located behind the front lines. The Ukrainian Air Force attacked warehouses of Russian ammunition in the occupied territories 7 times. 4 warehouses in the area of Genichesk, Cherson, Novakhovka, and Boryslav were destroyed. Russian troops once again fired on one of the districts of Mykolaiv with the use of cluster missiles prohibited by international law. Due to the successive actions of the Ukrainian armed forces in the south, the Russians changed their tactics. Yesterday, during the curfew, they fired on a residential area of the city, destroying many buildings. There were no military facilities or other such purposes there. Today, they fired on another district, and missiles fell next to a public transport stop. 5 people are killed, 7 are injured. Please be careful. The city may be under fire at any time, and you are not allowed to bathe in the sea. 2 people died in Koblevo yesterday after a mine explosion. According to the U.S. War Research Institute, the Russian armed forces are preparing to attack Kharkiv again. On the other hand, the main goal of the present stage of the war in Donbass will most likely be the capture of Bakhmut. The Russians can therefore reduce the intensity of the attacks on Seversk. In the Donetsk region, as a result of the Russian shelling, at least 8 people were killed and 19 injured during the last 24 hours. Slovyansk was shot again. Many apartment blocks in the city center were damaged as a result of the missile attack. There are still difficulties in delivering humanitarian aid to frontline villages and territories occupied by the Russians.
Since the start of the war, the UN and our colleagues from the NGOs have not been able to send any relief supplies to areas beyond the control of the government of Ukraine. We have not been able to conduct any assessments on the impact of the war on humanitarian needs. In Zaporizhzhia Oblast, for example, we have a very recent example of the challenge that we are facing here in Ukraine. This week, the Russian Federation prevented us from crossing the front line to deliver assistance in Polohi. We were prepared, we had the supplies, and we could not go. We have to deliver the 50 tons of different humanitarian supplies to another area, a settlement in the government-controlled areas called Stepanitsky. While there, our team had to take shelter as shelling is starting the settlement. The shelling happened dangerously close to us, while our colleagues were trying to offload the trucks. Both sides to the conflict, they were notified of our movements.
Today, the ambassadors of the G7 countries visited Odessa to emphasize the importance of the agreements on the export of Ukrainian grain. The first ship is already loaded. This is to be the first grain shipment since the beginning of the war. As for the loaded ships that were prevented from leaving due to the ongoing war, they too will eventually be allowed to leave the port. Our soldiers guarantee their safe loading. We are in contact with Turkey and the United Nations. They are waiting for our signal. We trust that the process will be successful. For now, everyone keeps their commitments, but you know, people risk their lives because they don't know how the process will go. The first ship is to leave the port today.